The letter came on a Tuesday. Jasmine had been sitting on her kitchen floor eating ground nuts and reading her Bible completely unbothered. Tuesday never announced itself. It was the most forgettable day of the week, the day nothing important ever happened on. She had stopped expecting things months ago, quietly. The way you stop when hoping starts to cost more than you have. Then someone knocked. She read the letter 3 times standing in the doorway, the afternoon sun warm on her back. Senior consultant. The position. The one she had applied for 8 months ago and quietly stopped believing would ever come. The salary figure made her lips part slightly. The involuntary reaction of a body receiving news before the mind catches up. She had written the name of this position on a piece of paper and tucked it into her Bible at Jeremiah 29:11, the way her mother taught her. But she did not shout. She did not call her mother. Instead, she stood there for a long time, holding the letter in both hands, feeling something unexpected move underneath the joy. It was quiet and persistent, like a stone beneath shallow water, invisible until your foot finds it. She told herself it was nerves. She put the letter down and went back to her ground nuts and did not convince herself of anything. Her name was Jasmine, and she was a doctor, not the kind you forgot after the appointment. She remembered patients' names across years, stayed late not because protocol required it, but because leaving while someone was still afraid felt wrong. The night nurses brought her tea when she had been on the ward too long, which was almost always. The community wing had become, in 6 years, less a place she worked and more a place she belonged. She had earned this promotion 6 times over, and most of the hospital knew it. 6 years of early mornings and skipped meals and cases she carried home in her chest long after she left the building. 6 years of watching less dedicated people advance while she smiled, went home, cried quietly, and got up the next morning and did it all again. She deserved this job. There was no honest person in that hospital who would say otherwise. But the unease did not leave. She called Obiageli that evening, the person she always called when something large happened and needed to be witnessed properly. Obiageli had the kind of laugh that reorganized whatever room it entered, and an honesty that landed softly without losing its edge. She was the right person for complicated news, because she met both joy and trouble with the same grounded attention. "I got the position," Jasmine said. Obiageli screamed, a complete, full-body sound of delight that made Jasmine pull the phone from her ear and smile before she meant to. "Jasmine, Jasmine, did I not tell you? God does not forget." "He doesn't," Jasmine said. Then quietly, "But Obi, I don't feel right about it." The line went still. Obiageli's silence was different from ordinary silence. Active, attentive, the silence of someone actually thinking. "Tell me," she said. Jasmine tried to explain it. It wasn't guilt exactly. It was more like walking through a familiar house in the dark and sensing something had shifted without knowing what. She had prayed for this job until the prayer felt like speaking into a closed room, and now the answer was here, and she couldn't fully enter it. "You're just overwhelmed," Obiageli said. "Maybe," Jasmine said. She did not believe it. She lay awake that night listening to rain against the glass, thinking about Dr. Emika, her supervisor of 4 years, the man who had written her recommendation with visible pride. She had noticed his hands shaking recently when he thought no one was watching, and she kept returning to a corridor conversation 3 weeks ago that she had told herself she'd misunderstood. Something about restructuring. Something about cuts. Dr. Emika called before she finished her morning tea. His voice had the careful, deliberate quality of someone carrying something, heavy and choosing each step with precision. "Come to my office," he said, "before you sign anything. Before you respond to that letter, there are things you need to know first." His office smelled of old paper, and the particular tiredness of a man who had given everything to an institution and was watching it make decisions he could not support. He was 61, with the posture of someone younger and the eyes of someone much older. He told her to sit. Then he told her the truth. The restructuring was real. Not rumor, not misheard fragments reassembled by an anxious mind. The hospital board was planning serious cuts to the community wing, the wing where the poorest patients came, where the staff worked the longest hours for the least recognition. The senior consultant position came with a seat on the implementation committee, which meant whoever accepted It would be partly responsible for signing off on those cuts. They had chosen Jasmine specifically, not just for her competence, but because her name and her history in that wing would give the cuts a legitimacy they would not otherwise have, her reputation as cover, her 6 years of sacrifice as a shield for something she would never have chosen. She sat very still while he spoke. Then she said, "Why are you telling me this?" He looked at her steadily. "Because I am tired," he said, "of watching institutions use good people precisely because they are good." She drove home slowly, the kind of slowly that has nothing to do with traffic. She sat outside her flat in the car for 20 minutes, watching ordinary people move through their ordinary afternoon. This was the answer. This was Jeremiah 29:11 in an envelope on a Tuesday, and it had fine print she had not seen until someone with nothing left to lose showed it to her. She could still take it. She could argue herself into the long game, the inside seat, the incremental influence, the slow fight from within. She had heard that argument before. She had watched people make that choice and watched the table change them long before they changed anything on it. She went inside. She knelt down. She did not pray for clarity. She already had clarity. She prayed for the courage to obey what she already understood. She called Dr. Emeka the next morning. "I'm going to decline," she said without preamble. He was quiet for a moment. Something in that silence told her he had been hoping she would say exactly that. "I thought you might," he said, and those 4 words held more affirmation than any congratulation the board could have offered. Then she called Obiageli and told her everything. Obiageli listened without interrupting, which was not a small or natural thing for her, and it meant she understood the gravity. When Jasmine finished, the pause was long and considered. "So you're turning down the biggest opportunity of your career," Obiageli said slowly, "over something secondhand, something you can't prove." "Yes," Jasmine said, and underneath the terrified, "I feel at peace." The formal decline took an hour to write, not from uncertainty, but from the weight of knowing some doors don't reopen. She wrote something simple, honest, professional. She sent it before the salary number could reassert itself in her imagination. The next morning, she was in the community wing by 6:30. A woman in bed 4 had been awake all night with anxiety, the looping 3 a.m. kind that visits when the ward is quiet and the mind has nothing to distract it. Jasmine pulled a chair to her bedside and sat with her for 40 minutes. She did not technically have 40 minutes. She gave them anyway. 3 weeks passed, then a month. The board made the announcement, the restructuring, the cuts, the new senior consultant. A man named Dr. Haruna, whose face in the press photographs carried the expression of someone wearing a role that didn't quite fit. Jasmine watched it unfold from the community wing and felt something complicated settle in her chest. Not vindication, not satisfaction, just the sober quiet of someone who had seen clearly in the dark and chosen accordingly. She told no one except Obiageli. Obedience, she was learning, did not require an audience to be real. But faith was not a single decision. It was a sequence. The month after the announcement, her landlord sold the building and gave her 3 months to leave. The month after that, her car made a sound on the highway that cost more to fix than she had in her account, and she started taking public transport. 34 years old, a trained physician, eating ground nuts because they were filling and cheap, taking the bus because it was what she could afford. She called her mother every week. Her mother prayed with her on the phone each time, long, specific, unapologetic prayers that named God by his many names. Her mother had buried a husband young, raised children alone, built a business from a table and a bag of raw material, and arrived at 72 utterly unshakable. "He is not punishing you," her mother said one evening. "There is a difference between punishment and building. Punishment makes you smaller." She paused. "But look at your hands when the building is done. They will be stronger. They will be able to hold more." Jasmine wrote that down. She had started keeping a journal that season, not by plan, but by necessity, because things were moving inside her that needed somewhere to go. She wrote about patience, about hard days, about what it cost to do the right thing with no reward and no sign that anyone in heaven had noticed. One night she wrote, "Obedience without outcome is still obedience. Maybe it is the most honest kind, the kind that proves you are not obeying for what it gets you." She read it back. She believed it. She also hoped the outcome would still come. Both things were true, and she was learning to let them coexist without needing to resolve the tension. 4 months after she declined the position, a man named Chibundo called on an otherwise unremarkable afternoon. He had her name from Dr. Emeka. He explained carefully that he was coordinating a coalition of medical professionals and development partners, launching a community health initiative 2 years in the making. Not a hospital exactly, not a clinic exactly. Something built from the ground up, designed specifically and unapologetically for underserved populations. They needed a medical director, not someone to give cuts a sympathetic face, but someone to shape the work, set the standard, build the culture from the inside out. Dr. Emeka Chibundo said, had described her in 3 words: principled, gifted, and available. She almost laughed at the last one. Available, the word that 4 months ago would have stung like an insult. Now it sounded like description, like preparation, like someone had known she would be free exactly when she needed to be free. She met Chibundo the following week. He was mid-30s, with the focused energy of someone who had decided what his life was for and was simply executing the decision. He laid out the initiative with a precision that told her this had not been assembled carelessly. These were people who understood that shortcuts in planning become crises in practice. The salary was less than the hospital position. He said so immediately, plainly, without softening or apology. The work was the exact room she had been circling for 6 years, looking for a door built for someone with her specific hands. She said yes before she left his office, not impulsively, but with the settled weight of something she recognized as peace. Peace had a different texture than impulse. It felt prepared rather than stumbled into. It felt like arrival. She called Obiageli on the walk to the bus stop. The afternoon light going gold across the pavement. "You said yes already?" Obiageli said. "I said yes already." A beat. Then Obiageli laughed, the full laugh, the room reorganizing laugh, and Jasmine stood at the bus stop laughing too, and she did not care at all who was watching. That evening she opened her journal to the line she had written in the hardest part of the season. "Obedience without outcome is still obedience." She read it. Then she turned the page and wrote slowly, meaning every word. But sometimes the outcome comes. Not on your schedule. Not wearing the shape you imagined. But when it does, you understand that the waiting was never wasted. It was the foundation being poured. You couldn't have held this without what the waiting built in you. The initiative opened its doors on the 1st of December. Jasmine arrived at 5 in the morning, before any patient, before any staff, before anyone else had reason to be there. She stood in the empty space and turned slowly, taking it in, the clean walls, the waiting chairs, the reception desk bare and ready, the examination room smelling of fresh paint and possibility. She had stood in a lot of rooms in her career. She had never stood in one that felt this specifically like the room she had been walking toward. She stood in the center of it and prayed. Not for anything. No list, no petition, no careful, anxious request. Just thank you, the most complete form of prayer, the one that has stopped negotiating and started receiving. A woman standing in the answer to a prayer she had not known how to pray, speaking to a God who had known exactly what he was building even when she could only feel the weight, not see the shape. He was not testing whether she would get what she wanted. He was testing whether she could be trusted with what he had planned. She passed not because she never wavered, never wept, never ate cheap, ground nuts in her car wondering how much longer the season could possibly last. She passed because she did not let go. Because she stayed obedient in the dark, and the dark did not win. And she was standing in the answer on a December morning with stronger hands, a quieter spirit, and the deep, unshakable peace of someone who had finally learned the difference between punishment and preparation.